Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Charney.
And I'm your co-host, Shay Northrup.
Today we're going to be talking about iPhone spyware and iPhone anti-theft, McDonald's toy recall, and HP privacy screen. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Apple apparently has a really big zero-day vulnerability that will allow people to take over your phone basically by clicking some sort of link. I'm assuming it's in the text message or an email. But from what I've read, it actually jailbreaks it on the fly. That turns it into a spy device. Now, the problem with this being is this is a great way for corporate espionage, or say if you're one of the alphabet agencies in the federal government, this may even be something that they originally started or at least discovered.
So what happened was, let's see, Ahmed Mansour, who is a lawyer, he received text messages on the 10th and 11th of August that promised that it would be revealing secrets about people being tortured in the UAE jails. So if he taps the link, it would reveal the secrets. Well, he sent it in, and Citizen Lab says that his iPhone 6 would have been jailbroken, like you said, and turned into a spy device. So the exact quote is, once infected, Mansour's phone would have become a digital spy in his pocket, capable of employing his iPhone camera microphone to snoop on activity in the vicinity of the device, recording his WhatsApp, Viber calls, logging messages sent in mobile chat apps, and tracking his movements. So
basically they do some sort of social engineering. I'm not quite sure if this would apply for a lot of people. I mean, it would be... See, this kind of surprises me because his thing seems like a very narrow case, because I'm assuming what he does, that would be something important. But to me, it would seem like some sort of, hey, you want the new album or see pictures of this celebrity? You know, it has to be clickbait.
Oh, yeah, totally. So I think it's just really interesting that, like, you know, here we think that iOS is the most secure and safe platform, and people are always talking about its security, but here we go, like, with something so easy as planting spyware just by clicking a link.
And I would say they're more secure. I don't know. I mean, I've used it in the past. I don't think secure is the right way to say it. It's a little bit more privacy-based just because there's certain permissions that just can't be given on the operating system level. Android, for example, a good friend of mine said he tried a flashlight app that basically gave the app complete access to the phone. And he was like, there's no reason why it needs contacts, it needs this, it needs that, you know.
Right.
So
I mean, if you're going to be getting apps, you should really take a look at what all it's going to have you give it permission to do.
Now, according to some of the articles I actually read about this, because this happened recently. This is something that I've heard about happening, not with a particular iPhone though. It says these types of vulnerabilities are rare and lucrative. It's not uncommon in kind of the darker, dingier world of the internet for vulnerabilities to stay hidden, and people sell those vulnerabilities or sell the service of something happening.
Right. Well, and so didn't Apple like immediately put out an update fixing this problem?
So Apple did apparently fix it fairly fast, even surprising security researchers and people on the inside. They fixed it with iOS 9.3.5. That reminds me, I need to go home and update my iPhone because
if you use an Apple device, everybody go out there and update it right now.
I generally don't update my device right away. It's weird. Like, I used to do it all the time. Now I usually wait a while to see what's happening. I've actually had iPhones. Was it 7? One of the iPhone was the major OS update on my 4S. Went from usable to completely unusable, which is the reason I actually have my current phone. Mm-hmm. So I think this is just the future. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, with the cell phones being smart, they're kind of like your digital leash. They're your whole world, and losing them, basically, you're out a lot of information and knowledge and contacts. Now this is just the next step. You keep it with you, but they're spying on you. Now they can keep track of you. If you use your camera a lot, they can see it. They can view what you're watching or doing in real life. If you have some sort of hip case and the camera's exposed, hear all your conversations. This is just like, the next step. It's an Orwellian world, to quote a particular friend of mine.
Right. Well, it's very 1984, so to speak. Yeah,
and I'm actually surprised this kind of got out. This seems like something like the governments have been doing for a while. I mean, but wouldn't be surprised if this is something that researchers and some tinfoil hat wearing people say, they didn't have to install this. They already have the keys to the kingdom.
So you mean to tell me, John, that the government uses clickbait to spy on people?
I wouldn't be surprised. And you keep hearing how, what was it? Those Iranian, I forgot what exactly called, centrifuges. They kept going down because it's partially how you make uranium.
Right.
And they kept going down. And I would not be surprised if there was some Iranian researcher who was on some sort of clickbait website and had just nuked the system.
That would be funny. That would be really interesting.
I just...
like you're looking at what celebrities were what on the red carpet because you clicked a clickbait thing, and the next thing you know...
Well, it was like, not to get too sidelined, but they say when they got Bin Laden, they found pictures of Whitney Houston. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was... This is basically social engineering on a new level. Like Kevin Mitnick, that's how he got away with everything. So he was just doing social engineering, and he was banned from computers for like a decade or more. So
I think that's really interesting that you can get banned from computers. Like, computers are a privilege. Not a right.
There's a story of him. They didn't start doing due process because they're afraid he was going to be able to set nuclear weapons off with whistling or something. He has a book about his experience. If you ever want to read something very fascinating, he's actually a cool guy to listen to speak. I don't know if he's on any TED Talks. I've listened to a couple of stuff he's been on.
Well, it's one of those things. Have you ever seen the movie Hackers?
Yes, Gibson.
Yeah, in the movie Hackers, the little boy, I don't know what he's like. How old was he when he hacked into?
He was a little 8 or younger.
And I think he was just looking for porn.
By the way, if you're talking about it's Johnny Lee Miller in the video in the movie, and he's playing he has two character names. His one is Zero Cool. The other one is Crash Override, and his name is Dade Murphy, Angelina Jolie. It's actually a really cool movie, but
super dated though. The internet does not work the way that they portrayed it in that movie.
See, I don't know. We could totally silent. Maybe this is. We should invite the movie people in sometime and have a discussion of technology and movies.
Yeah, but what in the beginning of the movie though, to get back on track, they banned him from using computers for 10 years.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised, though. I mean, realistically, it is a privilege to use the internet. So, prisoners don't get to use it realistically. So, I could see it. I think it would be hard to live in a modern world and not have access to any technology.
Right.
I think that would hamper you a lot. Nowadays, you can't even get hired without understanding basic office productivity suite. And it's even narrowed enough that a lot of times it says in ads, it'll say Excel. And when they say Excel, they're talking about Microsoft Excel.
That's really interesting, too, because isn't Excel, rarely used these days?
Depends on what industry you're in. I mean, I've used Excel spreadsheets for things.
I've never used it in an actual job setting, but,
Well, it's an accounting program. I've used it for balancing my checkbook.
Yeah.
For example, I made one that I entered how much money I made in a month and what the spending was, and it gave me a breakdown of what areas I was spending in, how much money I had left, etc.
Right.
So it's a very handy tool, but I don't know. And this 0-day flaws, Microsoft's actually had a bunch. I mean, the benefit of Microsoft, and this is me being a little bit of a fanboy, is I think Microsoft, unlike a lot of companies, responds pretty fast to most things. Granted, there are some holes that they haven't fixed or refuse to acknowledge.
Right.
But they do monthly updates. That's more than almost any company. I mean, it's definitely more than Adobe does with Flash.
I get updates or you're talking about Microsoft, but I mean even the Android's operating systems get updated like all the time.
Like, is it just randomly? Is it one particular? Because Microsoft, they call it Patch Tuesday. At least they used to.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. Like my Android's always trying to update.
Interesting. I've never really used Android. I mean, I've used it enough to be able to actually use a little bit of it. I do play with it a little bit on something called BlueStacks that allows me to use Android apps on a Windows computer.
Gotcha. Well, it looks like we're coming up on a break. When we get back, we're going to talk about how future iPhones might be able to help you capture the thief's photo and fingerprints when stolen.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
So, it looks like future iPhones might be able to capture a thief's photo and fingerprint when stolen. So the idea is, and Apple's been playing around with an anti-theft measure that involves covertly capturing both photo and fingerprints of a phone thief without his or her knowledge. So it actually kind of sounds a little bit like our previous story about spying on people who might, have stolen your phone.
And I was hoping for electroshock. But I guess this is a safer alternative.
So they're thinking about incorporating this into iPhones and iPads, and it would be triggered by the exact quote is a trigger condition. And so what it would do is it's supposed to collect a bunch of information using an app on the phone. So what realistically will happen too is it'll probably lock up your phone in a way, and then I guess the idea is that it's going to try to capture the fingerprint. I don't know if it's going to be bringing it to a database or what. Well,
my assumption, my first thought when you mentioned that, was it'd probably be using iCloud. That would be my first thought. Would be there's
right.
Probably two. There's probably an automated thing, like if it goes so far away from certain position type of thing, or an iCloud click. For example, when you lose your phone, you can go into iCloud. You actually ping your phone. You can delete it. There's a few things you can do.
Right. Well,
that's the also guess is the fact what it does is it probably sends that package to your iCloud account and you can give it to the police would be my best guess.
So quoting them themselves, maybe one or more fingerprints or one or more images of a current user of using the computing device, video of the current user, audio of the environment or computing devices, forensic interface and information and so on. The computing device may then provide the stored biometric information for identification of one or more of the unauthorized users. So it does sound like it might be bringing it in there.
It wouldn't be too hard to do. I mean, the fingerprint scanner is the home button. So anytime the person would actually have to hit it, so that's obvious.
Right. So I don't know if they're going to be allowed to do this sort of thing. I know that there's a lot of legal red flags that they're going to have to go through, and looks like
I don't think they could stop it. I mean, if users activated this and they just gave users the ability to use it, I don't see how anybody could stop them. It's not like they had it on by default. I think if they had it on by default, that would be a major legal issue.
I think it's more of the idea of this being a feature and how someone could potentially hack into it and use it for their own personal gain, kind of like with the spyware thing that we were talking about in the previous thing. I know it's supposed to, help authorities ID the suspect, and I wonder if maybe there's a third party or another sort of thing you could hook up to your iMac so that way you can maybe...
Well, software like that's actually existed for a while. There's a couple of stories I've found over the years about somebody installing software on their computer. Their MacBook gets stolen.
Right.
There's one particular story I remember. The guy was on a Reddit account. The guy logged into his phone, and it was in Brazil or some not Middle Eastern,
Right,
some South African country, and saw pictures of the guy who was hearing audio, gotten video,
Yeah,
got his
that's what I'm
location off the
talking about.
GPS chips. So it's not new technology.
Basically, we would just be taking older technology and applying it to a criminal justice field.
The weirdest thing, though, at least for the laptop, is laptops have a blue light or some sort of light when they're using the camera. I've never understood how they don't see the recording light. iPhones and Android phones don't have that luxury. So
No.
you don't really know if they're taking a picture, and if it's being handled behind the scenes, you'll never know what happens.
Well, what you could probably do too is if the phone will send you these pictures that it's taking and send you the video that it's taking, you could probably take it to the police and they'll be able to, sort all that out, hopefully.
That would be my best guess, because I just don't see it automatically being sent to local authorities, or maybe it's sent to Apple.
Maybe.
And then maybe, I don't know, this is kind of a random guess. Maybe, given your contact information, Apple contacts you and says, was your phone stolen? But then that would be a paid for service, because I don't see any company supporting that.
I think a thing too is with all this in mind, the legal and red flags would be more of just like Apple being able to tap into this at any time, kind of a thing.
Well, that's definitely a major one. There was a story a number of years ago about a school who handed out laptops and was actually able to remotely log into all of these kids' laptops.
There was a big deal about that. Wasn't there video of the kids dressing and undressing?
Yeah, there were some pretty illegal things going on, besides the fact that I don't think they ever mentioned it to the parents that these can be remotely logged in. I mean, from my thought, I would say, okay, you probably could, but they should actually have a notice, to have something, because you're going to work, because the school's going to want to keep an eye on the laptops. They're going to want to do some sort of triage to it.
Right.
But having access to the camera and mic is a little no-no, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. So it doesn't look like we'll be seeing these in consumer products anytime soon, but it could be here in the future.
Honestly, I bet this is a couple of years down the road. Because phones being stolen is a really big problem. I mean, a lot of underworld,
expensive too.
Well, yeah, they're true. I mean, besides that, though, the big thing is they get stolen and resold, and apparently it's not hard to change the IMEI number via software. So they get sold, and so these thieves are making a ton of money. It's a giant market out there for stolen cell phones.
Yeah, I believe it.
I've heard stories online and from television shows. Granted, these are documentaries, but they're talking about how you can go to bazaars in third world countries, and there's just market after market of brand new high-end cell phones in a country where no one should be able to afford an S7, because $600 American, well, it's a lot to me. To them, it may be a couple of years' salary. And the other thing is, it's not uncommon for people to steal pay-as-you-go phones from everybody's favorite big box retailer.
Oh, yeah. Those are things that get stolen all the time.
And what they do is they sell it to you, and then when you think, hey, I got a good phone for $100 and try to activate it, and a lot of the times it has to go through their system. So if you're talking about Best Buy, Walmart, Target, name the store, it actually has to go through their system, and then through their system, it goes to the carrier. So if you're talking about Track Phone, Straight Talk, the myriad of others, if it doesn't do that, the phone cannot be activated. So it's actually flagged in their system as stolen. Mm-hmm. And so you've already wasted money. So this is really a big problem in modern America, and I think it's about time you have some first-party phone companies like Apple actually trying to do something that may stop massive phone losses. And this is like getting a laptop stolen from you. Matter of fact, I think this is even more important, because I have very important information on my cell phone that I don't necessarily have anywhere else. So we're headed into a break. So after the break, we're going to be talking about McDonald's latest toy recall.
We're also going to be talking about HP's laptop that is supposed to block over-the-shoulder snooping.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
While a toy recall may not be a big surprise, McDonald's is having a major problem with their fitness wristbands. Now, what these fitness wristbands did is they're basically a step counter, and there was a little blue light saying if they're walking, etc., because you can cheat on those things, believe it or not.
That you can. I remember when my brother was in middle school, they used to hand out step counters to the kids, and you had to reach a certain number of steps in PE for a grade. So what a lot of the kids would do is they'd tie them on their belts or tie them on a string and swing them around their head to get the steps up.
Now, these devices were promoted as devices that would encourage and measure active lifestyles. One counts how many steps the wearer has made, while the other blinks lights with detecting the user is walking. The CPSC said McDonald's had distributed the wristbands across the United States and Canada between 9 and 17 of August. It received more than 70 complaints of skin irritation from customers, including several reports of skin blistering. That's not uncommon. There was a Fitbit recall a while ago where you had similar incidents. I, however, haven't read anything about if it's the material or just if the particular wearer was allergic to said material.
I know a lot of people are allergic to nickel, nickel being up against their skin for a really long time, and I know a lot of things are made of nickel, like earrings and belts and stuff like that, but I mean, with a Fitbit, what is it made out of? Acid? How is this happening?
I see. I'm thinking it's a type of plastic because I'm thinking maybe it's a plastic that doesn't breathe, because according to the articles I've read about it, both devices came with the transparent plastic wristband straps, each ranged in 3 colors.
Right.
So my guess is what it is obviously if you're exercising, you're getting sweaty, and just that it moving around, and probably between that and your skin, you're just...
Well, I'm wondering how long these kids are wearing these for this to happen.
That is something I haven't read. Because if it was me as a kid, I would have never put the stupid thing on.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. When I was a kid, I didn't like having things wrapped around my wrist.
Now, a spokesman from McDonald's said nothing is more important to us than safety and well-being of our children. So that being said, those who return the items from McDonald's will be offered a replacement toy and either a yogurt tube or a bag of apple slices. So I think
forget about your pain.
Yeah.
Let's give you some yogurt and
a toy.
Here's a toy.
I don't know. I think this is I wouldn't say a big problem, but I think this is going to be a bigger problem in the future when wearable technology is becoming more popular. For example, I have an Apple Watch. I've had an Apple Watch since the beginning of the year, and I haven't had any issues with it. But that being said, you're wearing something that's electronic. It has a battery. It's just a matter of time before one of the lithium-ion batteries in these things explode on somebody.
Right. Well, and it's really funny. I think it's funny that McDonald's is always trying to up its image and try to make itself look like it's a healthy choice. Especially with the kids' meals, they have the apples and they have the Go-Gurt and everything. And I guess they're trying to make it more healthy for kids, and then they add things like Fitbits. But nobody is fooled by McDonald's anymore. We all know that it's not healthy. And I don't see how Fitbit toys or Fitbit toy replicas are going to, help anything or even help their, image.
Well, see, I'm kind of thinking anybody who goes to McDonald's is going to go there no matter what. So I think if McDonald's can help those people stay active and have some sort of exercise, I think that's a positive side for them. I mean, there's a lot of people who have a negative viewpoint of it, but honestly, people are going to go no matter what. So why not give it a shot? Why not give them options? But no, I agree with you.
Well, I feel like it's not so much of giving people good options. I think it's a PR stunt.
Yeah, I don't know. Pretty much toys are all PR stunt to begin with. I mean, why? Because the greatest way to get anybody to do anything is have it go through their children. Okay.
So something interesting that HP has just decided to do is they have put out 2 different laptops that are 14 inches each, and they are supposed to block over-the-shoulder snooping. So the technology is supposed to be able to darken the picture by 95% when observed at wide angles. Now, if you look at the photos of these things, you can only see the screen perfectly from a head-on type thing. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever tried to watch Netflix with a friend or loved one with someone on a laptop, but from certain angles, you can't really see the screen. Similar concept, but done intentionally instead of accidentally.
Well, stuff like that's been around for a long time. There's privacy screens you actually put on top of the laptop that actually do that.
A lot of them are glue-on, right?
I don't know if they're glue-on. I've seen slip-on ones, but I do know a lot of medical offices use stuff like that.
So it's nothing new, but it is the world's first integrated privacy screen.
Now the question is, how is it activated by like a button, electricity?
Yes, it is. So you press the F2 key and it will enable the privacy mode, which HP says can reduce it up to 95% of visibility.
Well, how much does it suck down the battery?
That is a good question. It does not say how much it kills your battery.
Because my assumption would be that it's sandwiched somewhere in the display, so probably you have to put electricity to it in order to activate it.
Well, and I'm kind of wondering how much power these computers also have, like what the specs are, but it doesn't say anything about the specs themselves. So it's funny, the words that they're using in this thing is visual hacking and over-the-shoulder hacking, but what they mean is just snooping. So I guess whenever someone looks over at a book that I'm reading, they're visually hacking my book.
See, we brought up the movie Hackers earlier in the movie. There's a scene in the movie Hackers where a character named Lord Nikon was actually walking around a company collecting passwords. So it's not uncommon to do that. I mean, it's not...
Right.
Well, as long as you have an eidetic memory.
The way that it was advertised and the way that I've seen it advertised is it's like when you're on a plane and you don't want somebody to see what you're watching. I think that's the way that I've seen it advertised before. So what it is it's nothing new. This technology's been around for 30 years. And it might be something good for, like you were saying, healthcare clinics, government jobs, and that sort of thing. Now, the way that I think the common man would use it was like I was saying before. You're watching something and you don't want somebody to see it and that sort of thing.
See, I have kind of an odd example or an idea of that. So I'm thinking you're on a plane, probably in the middle seat or the one towards the window. And say if you're watching your favorite movie or even something a tad bit inappropriate, and I could totally see somebody sitting behind you tapping on your shoulder like, hey, can you rewind that? I missed that. Or going, hey, this is highly inappropriate.
Well, like for me, what was it? When that show American Horror Story came out, which by the way, I only like the first season, but it's full of like very adult content, like very sexual situations.
So kind of like Game of Thrones.
Kind of, yes.
Well, I mean, very adult oriented, very
right.
Have to be careful on like who you watch around type of thing.
Well, and I like extremely violent movies, and so I remember like going through, I'd go through my house with my laptop and like go and make something to eat, and whoever would walk by would be like, "What is he watching? Is he watching like
into something inappropriate?"
Yeah, right. When it was just a show, but I feel like it would be good for that sort of thing. And I've actually looked at the different angles. You can still kind of make out what's on the screen, so you wouldn't be able to watch adult.
So I'm thinking this is more for text related, like HIPAA compliancy.
Yes.
You're doing paperwork that require like your eyes only type of thing, something that's very
private. Specific for that sort of thing. And if it is in that setting, it won't matter as much what the specs of the computer are. But for consumer use, it's that sort of thing.
Or if you're in my case, you're reading Reddit, for example, and don't really want everybody to know your Reddit screen name.
Right. Well, in Tumblr. Tumblr is one of those things that all kinds of adult content pops up when you don't want it to.
See, this is my first thought about this, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. I want to know one thing is, how does it actually work? Because my assumption what it is it's a film of plastic sandwiched between 2 layers of the display screen. So if it's LCDs, it's sandwiched between the two. And when something's applied to it, it activates. Now my question is, how much does that use? Does that hurt performance because you're drawing power from it? What is the battery life?
Just work kind of like, you know how when you darken and lighten your screen, how it doesn't really affect it too much?
Well, there's Windows. There's very high-end Windows that have a layer sandwiched between it, and it's super privacy glass. You hit a button, it becomes opaque. You can't see through it.
Right.
And that does actually suck down power. Now, it may not be a large amount, but on a laptop over time, that trickle
it definitely does
becomes a waterfall.
One of the things, too, that apparently they can do is that IT departments can program the laptop so that way the filter is always on and you can't turn it off.
That would be annoying, but cool for them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're in like one of these high-end government agency jobs, you might need something like that.
Yeah, if you're a stock trader, you need something with HIPAA compliancy. Which, so no, I can totally see it. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to GSMCpodcasts.com. That's GSMCpodcast.com. And click on the technology section. I want you to subscribe to us. There's also a myriad of great other content on the GSMC network. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to go to Facebook.com. Go to the search bar, type in GSMC Technology Podcast. This is episode 27. Now, if you have any comments, questions, or do you have a story that you think that we must hear about, I want you to click on that. Type it in, because we do pay attention to that. We also have a Twitter page. Just type in GSMC Technology Podcast. You'll find us. And for Jonathan Charney
and Shay Northrup,
as always, thank you for listening.